From South Africa, we now shift focus to Sudan, where over 16,000 have been killed and over 12 million displaced in over a year of civil war between the Sudanese army and the RSF paramilitary. The conflict has devastated the northeast African country. Now reports say that two countries are making this war deadlier, Iran and the United Arab Emirates. They have reportedly been supplying drones to warring sides in Sudan. Both Iran and the UAE have been accused of violating a United Nations arms embargo, which bars supply of weapons to the Sudanese government and armed factions in Darfur. In March this year, the Sudanese army celebrated an unprecedented military advance. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's forces recaptured the state broadcaster's headquarters in the capital Khartoum. However, videos of the attack by the army showed that it was carried out with the help of Iranian-made drones. In January, the Sudanese paramilitary force shot an army drone at the Wadi Sedna military base. Now, videos showed the drone resembling an Iranian-manufactured drone called the Mohajer 6. The Mohajer 6 can fly up to 2,000 kilometers and carry out airstrikes with guided free-fall munitions. Earlier in December, a Boeing 747 plane belonging to Iranian cargo carrier Qasem Fars Air took off from the Bandar Abbas airport in Iran, headed toward the Red Sea, and disappeared from the radar. Hours later, satellites captured an image of a plane of the same type at a port in Sudan airport, where the Sudanese army officials are based. Now, the photo of the same plane on the airport's runway later circulated on social media. This flight reportedly made 5 rounds until the end of January, which is when the use of the Iranian drones were documented in Sudan's civil war. Iran's Qasem Fars Air has been accused of transporting weapons and fighters around West Asia, particularly to Syria. The airline had been sanctioned by the United States. Sudan's army has maintained strong presence in the skies since the war began. While the paramilitary force had ground control of most of Khartoum and Darfur, but with the appearance of drones, the situation on the ground significantly changed. Sudanese army managed to break the siege imposed on its soldiers in several locations. The RSF has also withdrawn from some neighborhoods in Khartoum. Sudan had a strong military tie with Iran until 2016, when Khartoum sided with Saudi Arabia in its conflict with Iran. Since the start of the civil war, the Sudanese government restored ties with Tehran. On the other side, it is the UAE that has been reportedly arming General Dagalo and the Sudanese paramilitary RSF. Now, early in the war, the RSF used quadcopter drones capable of dropping 120mm mortar shells. The Sudanese army had shot several of these drones down. Weapons experts say that the UAE had supplied the same drones to its allies in other conflict areas, such as Ethiopia and Yemen. Earlier this year, a UN report presented to the Security Council said that aviation tracking experts had observed civilian aircraft air bridge allegedly transporting arms from the UAE to the RSF. The United Arab Emirates denies this allegation. It says that the flights were delivering humanitarian aid, not weapons. By arming the warring factions, both Iran and the UAE have the same goal, which is a stronger foothold on the Red Sea. But in this race of weapons and geopolitical control, Sudan has turned into a country that is falling apart.
Fan of Italy's famous cuisine? Well, we are serving it with a side of diplomacy. As the G7 leaders gather in southern Italy, Vantage is taking you to the heart of the action. What's the agenda? Who is invited? And how is Italy preparing for it? Catch the special edition of Vantage throughout this week, only on Firstpost. Fan of Italy's famous cuisine? Well, we are serving it with a side of diplomacy. As G7 leaders gather in southern Italy, Vantage is taking you to the heart of the action. What's the agenda? Who's invited? And how is Italy preparing for it? Catch the special edition of Vantage throughout this week, only on Firstpost.